Gareth, the world has been living in the world of virtual meetings for many years now, but particularly since the break of the pandemic a few years ago. And I think it's true to say that we've got better at running virtual meetings than we were back then. But I also know that I think people almost sleepwalk into running a virtual meeting, thinking that it's pretty much like running a normal meeting. And I know we've got some pretty clear ideas, and you've got some great experience about how to make virtual meetings really, really fly. So tell us a little bit about that experience, Gareth.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think one of the things is virtual often gets criticised for, oh, you can't do this and it lacks this, and lots of criticism is flung at virtual, as if every physical meeting is fantastic and has been uplifting and interesting and inspiring. And I think we both know, and most people watching this will know, that that's not the case. So I think there are some principles. It's worthwhile reminding ourselves about some of the things that make virtual good. Like, for example, you don't have to necessarily be in a train, plane, automobile. You don't have to try and get people into a room. So it's often so much easier to run virtual. However, I think just with a few principles, there are some things that you can do to make it even better an experience for those people who come along.
And so if you were to pick, I don't know, top 3 to 5 principles that we could all adopt almost effortlessly, what would they be?
Yeah, well, I think three areas. I think firstly time, secondly about the amount of content, and I think thirdly people numbers. So let's take time. I think first and foremost, virtual meetings should be shorter and punchier, and there's somewhere around 60 minutes to 90 minutes maximum, because you're competing harder for attention and focus. And we all know in physical meetings that people go into sort of trances and things like that. So it's even harder in virtual meeting to keep people's attention. So it's got to be faster, it's got to be punchier. So time is an important thing, and if you're going to have a longer meeting, obviously you've got to break it up into chunks, so to give people some breaks, obviously natural breaks, but also just to refocus. So there's something around time. Linked to that is what you put into the meetings. So content is the second key point, and we often see a huge tendency to put so much into content, into what people are going to discuss. And again, it's the same principle. You're competing harder for attention, and just can't take it in. Often, for example, in presentations, it's just visually overwhelming. We've spoken about that before, but just the sheer amount is too much. So if you've got some big topics, we call it slicing the banana. So slicing it into small chunks of around 60, 90 minutes. So for example, if you're running category days or brand days, or you've got a customer meeting, don't try and fit it all into 3 hours. Break the topics into smaller chunks. So I think that's the second one. Of course, the third one are the number of people that you have attend. There is basically a golden rule that the more people you have in the meeting, the less interaction you can have with them, and of course, therefore, attention again drifts. So the number of people is something worthwhile thinking about. Also, if you're going to get people to do things like putting people into breakout rooms to work on particular topics, just think about the numbers in there. We normally would recommend somewhere around 12 people, something like that. Why? Because if it's bigger, then people can start to hide and not feel engaged. If it's too small, you don't get the breadth of interaction. And again, if you're going to get people to focus on particular topics, 12 is a really good number. You can break them into 3s and 4s and that type of thing. So it's a really nice number just to divide up. So it's the magic number from our perspective. But again, key thing here, the more people you have, the less engagement. So 3 key topics there about time, the content, and also the people numbers.
Okay, great. I mean, there's so many other tools that we could talk about as well, but if we stick to those 3 principles, we're going to construct our meetings in a way which are easier for people to engage with, and therefore for you to achieve your ultimate outcomes. Thank you, Gareth.